This is Aesthetically Trained, the podcast. Pushing you to year-on-year progression. With your host, Ross McKinley.
Yo, Ross McKinley, Aesthetically Trained, the podcast, episode 11. Patience, persistence, and skin in the game. This one's all about apprenticeships, applying what you've learned, and basically making sure that we carry forward and we apply the one principle, the one thing that I'm always talking about and preaching in this podcast. In life, really. And that's maximising what we have available. So, over the first 10 episodes, we've had guests on, you've had me teaching you, but what have you actually learned? But more importantly, what have you actually applied? What's changed? How do we guarantee and how do we know that we're doing just that? We're maximising, we're leading to year-on-year progression. How do we do it? Well, in this episode, I'm going to give you my 10 tips, my 10 lessons from the episode so far. I'm going to recap and I'm going to give you some advice moving forward that I think is going to massively help. So sit down, grab a coffee, do whatever you need to do, and then fucking listen to what I'm about to say. So to kick off, we know that I love a good quote, and I've got a great one to start. And that is, it is not what you get that makes you valuable. It is what you become. What the fuck does that mean? It means that it's not just the result at the end of the journey. It's not just the transformation at the end of the 28 days. It's not just the abs at the end of your 12 weeks. It's not just the financial gain at the end of a business venture. It's the habits. It's the routine. It's the discipline. It's the day in, day out changes to your life that will give you a lasting change moving forward. It's the confidence that you have in going to the gym 4 times a week. It's the newfound knowledge that you have in terms of eating protein throughout the day and how to manage your calories and make sure that you're in a deficit or in a surplus. It's the lessons, the habits, and the routines that we form that change us as a person moving forward that give us the most long-term growth. It isn't just the photo, the before and after, the ticking of the goal, because as we all know, and as I talked about in previous episodes, there's that hedonic treadmill. There's that inevitability that we're always just going to want to chase the next goal. So we need to learn to enjoy the process, and we need to embrace and look to create as many positive changes and habits as we can along the way, because they are what last. It's never just the photo. It's never just that one thing. It's who you become on the way to achieving that stays forever. So, over the 10 episodes I've covered so far, I always think that the podcast I listen to, and you might just listen to this for entertainment, you might just want to hear us swearing and going on rants occasionally and having cool guests on, and that's great. But also, I like to sometimes hear what the person hosting the podcast actually thinks. What the person thinks in terms of the lessons learned from certain guests, and also sometimes giving you a chance to recap, to learn what's been covered in previous podcasts. So let me know what you think of this episode. It's something a little bit different. I want to see what your thoughts are. And then after the episode, I want you to like the smash button. That's funny, isn't it? I heard it under the YouTube. Make sure that you hit the like button after the video, and make sure that whether you're listening on podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, drop a comment, and I want to know one thing, one lesson. Not something that you've learned, something that you've applied. So not just, oh, this was a cool bit of information, but what's changed for you in the first 10 episodes. So I'm going to rattle these off, and then I'm going to give you some overall lessons at the end, some common themes that I think will be really valuable for everyone listening and watching. Episode 1 was the introduction. It was a little bit about my background, but I think the main thing, hopefully the main thing that you got from that was my passion, my hunger, thirst for training, for wanting to be better, both myself, but my friends, my clients, the people around us. And the one thing that I wrote down from that episode is both passion, but starting somewhere. I wasn't waiting for the right time. I didn't wait until I went to university. I didn't wait until everything was perfect and I had my ducks all up in a line, as they say. I started with what I had available. That meant that I was writing programs for free. That meant that I was going to work in the gym, going to train in the gym in the morning on my own. I would go to work as a plumber. Then I would train again with my friends at night. I was doing the best I could with what I had available. I wasn't waiting for the right time. I started somewhere. That's what I want you to get from that one. That's what I got. The second episode was about challenges. Putting challenges into your training to give you that boost, to give you that buzz. For me, that is all about making it addictive. It's about giving you that fix, giving you that high, giving you the positive and the excitement, that anticipation, but also understanding that what comes with that is maybe sometimes a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of nervousness, a little bit of fear about going into the gym. But it's realizing that by attacking that in a controlled space in the gym, you can take those challenges, you can take that controlled adversity, which essentially you're choosing, and you can then conquer more stuff in your everyday life. You can have those difficult conversations. You can talk to your boss at work. You can, whatever it is that you want to do, you can do the thing that makes you feel uncomfortable, and you can learn to embrace that feeling. And you make that process addictive. You make it enjoyable. Episode 3 was about the types of motivation. Can you remember what the two types were? It was intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation was what's internal to us. It was our happiness. It was doing something for doing its sake. It was because you were doing it because of your love for the event or the activity itself. It's the person who plays football even though they're fucking shite. It's the person who loves going to the gym because they just like the buzz from training. But you've also got extrinsic motivation, which is deadlines, pressure, rewards, fear of failure. And extrinsic motivation, I believe, is sometimes what gets you started, but it's not the long-term solution, and you need to be building both. So the lessons that I wanted you to get, or the main takeaway, you might remember I had the ping, ping, ping. Bradley, who edits my videos, does a great job of that. The 6 points, the 6 key factors to building intrinsic motivation. I've got them written down for you here. The variables I wanted you to track and record in order to build your belief, build your knowledge, and build your enthusiasm and your confidence in the process, essentially, so that as long as you're tracking these 6 things, they won't all be headed in the right direction all the time, but you're building that belief, you're building that trust in the process much, much better than if you weren't tracking at all. So those 6 things were weight, photos, recording your workouts, measurements, learning a new skill, so having it, making it interesting, adding new exercises, maybe starting a new program or a new goal. And then the last one, number 6, was community and accountability. I'll just say them once more. Think since this episode, if you listen to this episode, and this is the same with all these lessons today, have you applied the points that I've said? Have you got some yourself that maybe you want to share with me afterwards? Or what have you learned so far? Weight, photos, recording your workouts, measurements, learning new skills, and then the last one, community and accountability. Next episode, episode 4. What the fuck is hypertrophy? Great name. But hypertrophy is what we're all training for. It's the building of new muscle. It's retaining muscle mass in a cut. It's building muscle mass in a surplus. It's the reason that all of us go to the gym and why we have training programs. Although we don't always necessarily know that, that is and should be our goal in training. So what I wanted you to take from that one, or my lessons for you, is what were the mechanisms of hypertrophy? Can you think, as you're listening now, what are the mechanisms of hypertrophy? Mechanical tension is the first one. Metabolic stress or cellular swelling is the second one, as that's what they're commonly known as. And then the third one is muscle damage. And I asked you back in that episode, what is the method or what is the way that your training is likely set up at the moment? What one are you missing? Are you missing the heavy lifts? Are you not applying progressive overload, which we also talked about? Are you not putting 1.25 kilo or doing an extra rep each week? What one are you missing in your training? Is it that you're not doing the pump work? You're not doing the bodybuilding style training? You're not getting that pump, that metabolic stress? Is that overall your volume's lacking, or there's no control in your weights? You're losing that eccentric tension on the muscle, and therefore you're not getting as much muscle damage. So think about that. 3 mechanisms of hypertrophy. Episode 5 was diet and what I believe to be the foundation for all diets. Not calories, not energy balance, they're a foregone conclusion. Everyone fucking knows or should know what they are, that's basics. But the foundation for me, the one thing that will always give with structure and should be constant throughout every goal you have is MPS. Muscle Protein Synthesis. That process, that irrefutable fact, is what I want. I want everyone I work with, everyone I speak to, everyone that watches these videos to apply moving forward. And that is very simply, the lesson there is build your meals around protein first. Think about your protein timings throughout the day. Not for the anabolic window, not because someone said that you need to have your protein shake within 10 minutes of finishing your work or any of that shite. Because this process, this physiological process in terms of creating enough protein in our diet can only be stimulated so many times in a day. Roughly every 3 to 4 hours is the refractory period. There was loads of other information in that episode, but the main point was protein and structuring your day and building your meals around that. Next, episode 6, Reese. We'll get on to the guests now. So Reese Silva, world champion. Apparently I got him in a lot of shit with that. We say he's fighters for calling him a world champion. Him himself is not a world champion, but he's a coach to world champion boxers and lots of other mint athletes. What I liked with Reese's episode was his story about working with athletes, working for free, which we're going to come on to that in a little bit. But the one thing with Reese that I thought was very applicable to everyone that watches my content and follows my channel was around weight and knowing the difference between fat loss and weight loss and not getting hung up on weight loss or weight gain. Some of his stories about fighters losing 6 kilos, 9 kilos in the week of fight week, and him specifically saying they're not losing fat, they're manipulating their diet, should teach you or should make you have a little bit more context around your own failings or the odd time when the scale hasn't went the right way and not judging it as, oh, the scale's on up half a kilo, it's all fat. Or the scale hasn't dropped this week, I'm not doing as good. It's the processes and the habits behind the goal that matter and stack up over time. Episode 7, the legend that is Jerome, my training partner. Because he has to put up with me, that must make him a legend. I must burn his ears out talking to him all day. But that was a great episode. I loved having him on. I thought it was really, really good. We got some really good feedback. In that episode, I think for me, one of the great things that we talked about was the differences between beginner, intermediate, and advanced training. And where do you see yourself on those scales? So in terms of training age, are you a beginner? Would you say that maybe you're intermediate? You've got everything right, but you're just building them over time. Remember, my classification was when you get really lean, I think intermediate to advanced people, when they get shredded, they have muscle everywhere. You can tell that they've had that time in the game. They've earned the right. They've built the muscle. They've got more density to the muscle. So that was a really good one. But also, on a bit of a deeper level, I think I said at the time, if you haven't watched this episode, go back and watch it. Jerome's answer to my quickfire round at the end, the best and worst place. And he said when he was in Afghanistan when he was serving. But his answer to that for me, and several of the things that were discussed in that episode, the topics that were covered, for me was all about one factor. The thing that linked it together. Whether it's being a good training partner, whether it's enjoying your life day to day, getting the most out of anything, is being present. Is focusing on the task at hand, the one thing in front of you. Not worrying about what's behind you, not looking too far ahead, but right now. What are you doing today? Enjoying that and maximising that. Episode 8, a personal favourite of mine, a topic I love to talk about. Are you being a little bitch? Are you being a fanny? Are you being a martyr? We've all been there when we've been dieting, when we've been training hard, when we've been feeling sore, when we're feeling like we're special and we've got a different story to other people, and we've got a reason why we don't have to do what we said we were going to do. And that's the key thing there, is just ask yourself, do you do what you say you were going to do? Do you stick to the plan? Do you see the process out? Do you stay true to your word? For me, that is a very big thing, and I think it should be to all men to build that confidence and belief in themselves. And also what I talked in that episode was the change in mindset required to help you achieve that. We talked a lot about, and you'll always hear me talk about, what's optimal. So optimal is what science says, what the textbooks say, what the elite athletes are trying to achieve. A little bit like this episode, I think it's important to not compare ourselves to optimal all the time. It's important to realize what our best is. What is the best that you can do? What's the best that I can do? What's the best that my clients can do? That's something I'm continually asking, and then I'm trying to achieve that. But also, and this is another point, it's not always, and you should never, compare every day to your best day. It doesn't mean that your best day of all time is what you're going to achieve every single day. You've got optimal, you've got your best, but then what I suggest, what I preach, what I shout about is doing the next best thing, making your next best decision based on your current circumstances and what you have available. Like I said in that episode, that's the change in mindset that needs to occur. It needs to be that you've fucked up today, you're struggling to do your cardio minutes, you might not be able to get to the gym, you've left your meals at home. What can you do to rectify it? What can you do next? Can you just have a protein shake, or do you be a martyr? Do you go to the garage and you eat shit and you get a meal deal? Can you catch up on your cardio minutes later, or do you make up an excuse and still go to bed, or still just fuck it off, or not do it, or not get up early, or whatever it is? Do you miss the workout and you don't catch up on it the next day? That's the difference. And over the long term, that's what adds up to the people who gets the best results. It's the ones who make the next best decision. It's not about being perfect. Episode 9. Chris Lowe, very, very, very clever guy. I'm sure that you'll all agree on that when you watch that episode. What did you learn from Chris, or what did I learn from Chris? I think that his point about calcium was classic. Chris was incredible about calcium. Possibly when you sweat too much, you're sweating out calcium, and that can affect your bone mineral density, and that can lead to fractures in people that play contact sports. For us, gym monkeys, probably not going to be that applicable, but that was just an incredible bit of knowledge. But for me, something that I took right away was Chris's 5 suggestions for supplements. What were they? Can anyone remember? Can you remember? If you can remember, have you done anything about it? So I actually tell all my clients to take all of these. The only thing I would say is that for one of them, we'll get into in a second, the dosage that Chris recommended was a little bit different. So Chris's recommendations for the 5 supplements that everyone should take were vitamin D, fish oils, creatine monohydrate, caffeine, and the last one, beta-alanine. And that was the one where it was a little bit different to what I'd heard in the past. And Chris was actually saying that you need to have beta-alanine every single day, buy it as a separate supplement, and that's what tops up, I think he said, your carnosine or your tyrosine levels or something. It's covered in that episode, but that was brilliant information even for me. And then the last episode, episode 10, with Blaine Clancy, my pal Blaine out in New Zealand at the minute. I love this one, and I love Blaine's story, even though I think, like anything with anyone, he probably doesn't realise it himself. But the fact that Blaine at one point was working 4 jobs, worked 26 hours in a row, worked in a nightclub, worked in Starbucks, had 2 internships at the same time, and then eventually it paid off, and he got his big job, and he's been to Hong Kong, he's out in New Zealand working as an S&C coach now, working with teams, and now he's looking to go on his next adventure around the world. But persistence was the key word and the key teaching of it, if you like, from that episode. Tying that all together, what's my point? Why did I see the need to do this episode? Well, hopefully, people like this recapping, and this can be something we maybe do every 10 or 20 or however many episodes to just go over and say, what did we actually learn? Because I think this is a valuable part of the process. I don't want it to be just entertainment, I want it to be infotainment. I want it to be that you're actually taking something away from it. The theme, I felt, with particularly the guests, but everything I'm talking about, is making the most of what you have available. Is that apprenticeship phase. It's serving your time. It's putting the time and the skin in the game to build up and do whatever you can and to learn and to progress. It's not waiting for the right time. It's not complaining about what you don't have. It's about working for free, learning for free. But what did everyone do? What am I suggesting you do now? Not just listen, not just coast by, but actually take personal responsibility for what you're listening to. Take personal responsibility for wherever you are in life right now. Whatever's happened, wherever you're going to go in the future, realizing, and some people get fucking gammy at this, some people get irritated by it, some people don't like that someone's saying, oh, everything is your fault and it'll only ever be your fault. But if you do that, if you can take personal responsibility, if you can say, all my results, all my failings, all my successes, all my failures, I'm going to take responsibility for all of them, that will give you much more power. When you blame, when you point the finger at someone else or something else, you're giving them power. You're losing your own power in the situation. Control the controllables. The only thing that should be your responsibility is your own reactions and your own effort in each situation. What does that actually mean? Well, I've given you 10 lessons there that hopefully you can apply. Just small, short sentences, if you like, from each podcast, little summaries. What I want to know is, what have you personally learned and what have you changed? For me, the best things I listen to, the best books I read, I'm not reading them cover to cover. You can see behind us up here, for those on YouTube, they've all got little post-it notes in, little Homer Simpson stickers to keep my place. But I'll find something and then I'll apply it. I'll write it down. I'll look to apply it to my clients. I'll teach it on a video. We don't want to just be taking on more and more information but doing nothing with it. We need to learn how to action stuff. We need to learn how to move forward. Whether that's with your diet and the protein, whether that's with your training, making it a challenge. Starting the thing, the passion, the thing that you want to start. Being more present. Intrinsic motivation. All the things that I've just mentioned. As an example, something that I hear a lot, linking it to what I do and to try to give you some ideas, is when people talk about working with a coach. Something that Blaine mentioned was that everyone should work with a coach. It doesn't necessarily have to be me. I'm not even necessarily talking just about fitness. But wanting to get to that next level, hiring a coach, working with someone, starting that course, going back to school, reading the book. People will make up an excuse. They'll talk about not having the time. They'll talk about not having the money. But in all scenarios and all the guests that we had on and everyone that I imagine that I talked to moving forward, most of them started for free. Most of them started by just simply saying, what can I do? Instead of worrying about what they haven't got, worrying about the financial strain that it might cause, worrying about the time that they don't have, they looked at what they did have. They said, right, you could say, right, I can't afford to work with a coach. I can't do the 28-day challenge with Ross. I can't join Aesthetically Trained. You should. But you could say, how am I going to save up for that in the long term? How am I going to budget and put money away to work with whatever coach, to go and do the course that furthers your career? Or, here's the other thing, here's what I done when I was younger, what all the other lads talk about. How can I get involved for free? Not necessarily in me, but in the career that you want to work with. How can you go online and find resources and watch these very videos that I'm doing now, but then actually apply it? That's why I wanted to do this episode, was to say, there's actually enough information here for you to start making progress and putting it together yourself if you want to do that. If you actually are willing to put the work in. If you haven't got the money, you might have the time. You might not have both. You've got to find a way to make it happen. For me, that could be going and searching online and looking at free websites, looking at my content, my videos, and putting your own plan together. You do that until you're in a position to then sign up for a program. It could be the same with a skill that you want to have for your career. You go, you use YouTube, you use Google, you do whatever it is, but you're learning and you're making progress. Because if you just wait, if you never apply, if you never have skin in the game, you've got nothing to lose. I've said this time and time again, but it's much, much easier to fail in private. It's much, much harder to fail in public. How can you use this information that I'm giving you, use these scenarios, use the knowledge that I have and the tips that I'm giving you to actually make a difference to your life today? Not just in the gym and whatever you're doing. And take personal responsibility for that. If you've listened to those first 10 episodes, go back and, or if you haven't, go back and listen to them again. In every one, there should be one thing that you're taking, one thing that you're learning. But then what are you actually doing to apply that moving forward? What have you actually changed? We all know, or we all have the things that that we know we should have started ages ago. And one thing happens or gets to a point where we get that uncomfortable, where we decide that enough's enough, I'm finally going to do it. I talked about starting a podcast for a year, 2 years, maybe more. Said I didn't have the time. Said that there was loads of excuses, whether it was fear of failure, whatever it was. But I'm here now and I'm doing it now. At some point, you've got to make the leap. Because otherwise, you'll come up with an excuse. And at some point, the excuse will be you haven't got the time, or you haven't got the money, or you haven't got whatever it is. But then eventually, as you get older and older, it'll be that you're too old, that you wished you'd done it when you were younger. And you're just constantly avoiding the thing that you want to do. Whether that's going to the gym, starting your little side hustle business, learning, back to school, having that conversation, moving abroad, whatever it is. You've got to go and slay the dragon in its lair, as they say. You've got to go and be willing to take on the challenge. But you're never going to do that if you don't apply what we're learning. If we don't actually take something from these episodes and try to move forward. So think, are you doing the best you can with what you have available? Are you waiting for the perfect time? Are you waiting until everything's right? Because if you are, it's never going to happen. Trust us, you need to make the most of what you have available. You need to find a way and take responsibility and say, this is my scenario right now. Whether it's work, whether it's your family, whether it's your friends, your lifestyle, your current weight, your current ability level, your fitness. All of that, I'm sorry to tell you, mate, is your responsibility. No one else's, and no one's coming to save you. What you've got to do is say, right, what can I apply today? What can I do now? And I'm not talking about fucking working with me or joining a program for that. I'm talking about just on a very basic level, how you look at everything in life, how you listen to these episodes, watch stuff on YouTube, podcasts, whatever it is. But what are you actually applying? What is actually the point in this time that you're investing with me? Because I want you to use it. I want this to be something where, moving forward, people say, I listened to episode 5, I made a change to my diet, I've not looked back. Jerome come on in episode 7. I heard him talking about changing careers at 35. I seen what he's done now. I thought, fucking hell, if he can do it, I want to give it a go. Reese, who said that it was never really his passion in the beginning, and he just found his job and then he realised what his passion was. That's completely different. I would never say that. But there's lessons to be learned from everyone if you can take inspiration from it and then go and apply it. And I want to involve you all in that journey. That's why I thought it'd be good to recap and say what we've actually learned, what have people actually done since. So if you're watching on YouTube especially, I want you to comment below with one thing. Not just something that's interesting, not just something that you've learned, but since watching, what have you done about it? On episode 2, I heard you talk about challenges. Since once a week I do a different challenge in the gym, I pick an exercise, I use something on your YouTube, or I look online and I do a different challenge in the gym every week, and it's helping us to build my confidence, and this is the result of it. Something like that. That is the cool shit that I'm talking about. That's progress. That's actually applying what we're learning. And that is what this is all about, and that's what I want to spend the time doing in episode 11. We've got to be willing to put that time in, to serve our apprenticeships, to be willing to start somewhere. If we wait until the perfect time, it'll never come. And it's the people who eventually take what appears to be the perfect opportunity, or what appear to have the people who've got everything lined up. Because like, oh, well, he's working with this coach now, or he jumped on this program at the right time, or they got these results, or he's got this business, or he's done this, or he's done that. But actually what you don't see, and what often they don't talk about, is Blaine working 4 jobs, working 26 hours. Is Chris putting all his time into being a nutritionist? Is Reese working for free, building up his experience with athletes to get to the point? If all of those people weren't willing to apply, to learn, to leave that ego at the door, and to put that apprenticeship phase in, to put that time in the beginning, they would never get themselves in a position to achieve the goals that they are now. You need to be willing to put that time in, knowing that the opportunity will come moving forward, doing the best you can with what you have available. I must have said that a lot of times in this episode, but it's mega, mega important. I'm going to leave you with a quote. I think the quotes are good because I think it helps people stick stuff in their mind. I think it helps make you remember. So, you ready? Tell me and I forget. Teach me and I may remember. involve me, and I learn. Fucking good, isn't it? And I think that's why what I do with my clients works. That's why they actually get involved, because they get involved in the process, they get involved in the groups. And that's what I'm trying to do with you right now. Tell me and I forget. Teach me and I may remember. But involve me and I learn. That's what it's all fucking about. Right. Like, comment, smash the like button, do all the things that you know you should do. Remember, please pay this forward. Pass it on, not just fucking randomly, just to one person who you think might benefit. If you and your friend are listening to this episode, pass it to them, say, what's one thing you've done differently? Call each other out. That's what I'm here for with my clients. Call each other out. People in the end will only be thankful of having people that hold them accountable, of episodes like this. If this episode made you feel uncomfortable, if you thought like, I've only turned up for the entertainment, that's not what I'm about, unfortunately. I'm going to keep doing my thing and doing it my way because it's my fucking show. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
You've been listening to Aesthetically Trained, the podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and spread the word.